Hey boys and girls, welcome back to another video. So we're back on the Coupe again. So today we want to try and get the charging system working properly. If you saw in the last video, the battery wasn't holding or wasn't charging. So this alternator that I thought was good doesn't seem to be happy. I've got a refurbished alternator which I seem to remember having some issues with, so we're going to try that, and then we've got another M50 alternator if not to fall back on, so we've got to get that swapped. Have a look at the power steering. Might be able to just top up with fluid. If you remember, the pump was pretty noisy in the last video, so hopefully get the power steering sorted, get the alternator sorted. I've charged the battery, so I've got a good battery to go on there. Also got the exhaust manifold studs. They turned up, so I'm going to swap them on. So yeah, obviously you saw the cooling system bleed up process in the last video. I am going to do a dedicated video, so I'm going to re-bleed this. I'm going to drop this hose out, empty all the coolant and start afresh and do a fresh video on that, but that'll be a short, like 5-10 minute video at best. But yeah, so let's get cooling alternator done, power steering done, and then hopefully I'll be able to put it on the floor and drive it backwards and forwards under its own steam and let it idle and all that kind of stuff. Obviously it's ran, it's got sort of up to temperature, but at the end of the last video I cut it short. You didn't see the whole process, and basically the battery, probably a minute after I ended the video, and my jump pack was dead and my battery died, and obviously the alternator wasn't working. So I never actually saw this thermostat, this hose open, so to my knowledge this engine could still be scrapped. I don't think it is, and I hope it isn't, but obviously we want to see that thermostat open so we know it works and is good. So yeah, a few little bits to iron out there, get the viscous on, and then hopefully at that point I'll then get the front end back together. Hopefully do that later in the week. I've got intake boots and stuff ready to go on here. I have noticed, annoyingly, the accelerator cable seems to be broken. It's sort of like snapped off. These are only available from the dealer, and I think, if I remember rightly, I think they're about 65 quid, something like that, and I can't ever seem to find any aftermarket. I've got a good spare one kicking around somewhere, so I'm going to swap that in, and then yeah, hopefully we can button up the engine bay and call that side of things done, get all the front end back on, all in this week's videos, and then all that leaves is a bloody brake line on that side. I'm going to change both front flexies anyway, and yeah, sort the seal out and then take it for an MOT. So I was aiming for end of November to have it MOTable, which basically gives me this week. So I'm probably going to miss that deadline, but if I can get everything done that it needs this week and just leave me to do the MOT next week, or sorry, just weld up the seal next week and then MOT it, that'd be pretty sweet. I think the seal's going to be pretty involved. I haven't decided yet. I need to get in there and start cutting it open, see how bad it is. And then I'll need to lift up the carpet, take the driver's seat out. So we've got a lot to do, basically. It's no quick fix for a shit box like this, let me tell you. Right, there's the two new alternators. So I've got this one which I had refurbished. It didn't charge at all and the insides were burnt out. I had it refurbished, put it on a car, and it seemed to short the car, but I took it back to the shop, had it retested, and he was like, yeah, it's fine. So it's been sat in my shed for like a year. Let's try it, see what happens. Hopefully it works. I think I spent about 180 quid or something on this. If it doesn't work, I'm gonna cry. And then we have an old M51, which I just bought in a whole load of parts. It's a bit noisy, but if it works for now, it will do. Get it on the car, get the car running, etc. So yeah, but we'll try the refurbished one first. So let's get the old one off. Obviously make sure your battery's off, because we're going to be touching the starter wires. So first things first, we've got to pop the belt off, and we're just going to do that by using the tensioner. To get to the tensioner, you've got a plastic cover, you've got to pop off. Sits on top of the pulley. Just use a pry tool. That pops off. And then, I think it's a 17. Yeah. 17, and then clockwise. And that will release the tension on the belt, and then you can pop it off. Right, and the next job Got 2 bolts that hold the tensioner, the alternator in place. I think they might be 17s again. Yep, they are. This is where tools like this come into their own, because it makes it so much easier, quicker. Sure, I've said to you in videos before, if you haven't got one of these, get one. This is only a cheap CD one, I think they're about 70 quid with 2 batteries on eBay. Absolute godsend. Well, that was tight. If these haven't been off for a while, they can be tricky to remove because the bolts obviously steel, but they thread into the oil filter housing block, which is alley. So quite often they come out corroded. I've only ever seen one where it actually snapped the oil filter housing and you couldn't thread a bolt back into it. Right, and then that's the second bolt out. Notice they are different lengths. That's the bottom bolt, that's the top bolt. Very slightly different. Right, so that's now off, or should be. Also, if they've not been off for ages, they can be really awkward to pry off. So I'd usually just get a lever bar in behind there and pull it through. But again, just be careful because all this alley is quite brittle. Even this one that's probably only been on there not even 6 months doesn't want to come off easily. So right, just move the charcoal canister out of the way. And hopefully, there we go. Right, and then you've got 2 connections in there. Blue wire and a thick red wire which goes straight to the starter. Starter main wire is 13. And I think the smaller one is a 10. The red wire links to the starter and obviously your charging system, your battery. The blue wire is what gives you your light on the dash. So if it doesn't see 12 volt down it, then that's what triggers your dash light. And usually that's when your dash light comes on when your alternator isn't charging. So, and it'll be because 12 volt isn't going down the blue wire. So sometimes it's possible if you've got a wiring issue that the alternator could be charging, but you've still got a light on the dash. So that's why before you ever replace an alternator, you'd want to check you've got 12 volt at the battery. And watch it as the car's running. If it's going down, if it's not maintaining its voltage or it's going down, then obviously your alternator is bad. But if it is, and you've still got a light on the dash, then it'll be this blue wire that runs through the engine loom, up into the dash, etc. Right, that's the old unit out. That actually sounds terrible. So, guessing it doesn't work. Well, I know it doesn't work. I can't remember if it worked when I bought the car or not. I don't really remember paying any attention to the battery light. So it may have just been buggered the whole time. But yeah, super annoying that I've had to replace it. But it is what it is. We do need to nab this little cover because our refurbished one hasn't got this cover on. Right, the alternator is now ready to go in. So we've got 2 wires to put back on. Right, that's the wrong bolt. Right, and then onto the 13 for the live. Okay, and then we're ready to bolt that to the block. Now this can be tricky because it's a very tight fit, and then trying to get everything to line up can be a bugger. Right, let's just try and get the bottom one in. Right, that's the front half of the bolt in, and then you've still got to line up the back half. For some reason the alternator always seems to want to twist on there. Again, you just got to keep teasing it into place, and eventually it will find its home. Don't go too tight with them, it's going into aluminium, so which we know loves to snap. Right, next job, let's get some power steering fluid in it whilst we have good access. I'm hoping, I haven't even checked this level, I'm hoping it's just low. Look, if you remember in the last video, it was very noisy. Oh, that'll do it. There's pretty much none in there. So I've got some with me. Hopefully it's enough. Right, I'll put some in. We'll have to run it and turn it into it. Remember, when you fill these, if you fill up your power steering fluid, these are a vented system. So you don't want to overfill it, because if you do, it will just blow through that hole in the cap. So if you see a 36 with leaking power steering lines, which is pretty common, the hoses do deteriorate, obviously, but it could also be a chance that you've just overfilled it. Especially if you do a lot of track stuff, as I learned recently, as the power steering works a lot harder on track, a lot of high RPM, so the pump's working hard. And yeah, it just likes to, if there's an excess amount of fluid in there, it likes to chuck it back out, so don't overfill it. Anyway, hopefully that's fixed that, we'll see in a minute. So let's chuck the belt back on, see if this alternator is any good. I haven't forgotten the cover, but we'll put that on in a minute, because I want to check if this alternator is any good. So I'm just going to chuck a battery on it, and then we'll fire it up. A nice charged battery. Alright, just double check everything. Let's start her up and make sure the battery light goes out. Hopefully she does. Well, the battery light's still on, which is kind of concerning, because I would have expected that to disappear by now. But the power steering pump seems to shut up. Or does it? But still got a battery light. Maybe the old alternator isn't bad. Or is it that one? But let's, before we dig into that, how is our power steering fluid level? Well, it's dropped, but that's kind of where it should be. Right, let's run it again. See if we can get the pump. It'd be nice if at least one thing I could fix. Wondering what I'm doing, I'm just trying to bleed the power steering. Just do that by going lock to lock with the engine running. I should get the air out of the system. Right, that seems to shut the power steering pump up, so hopefully that's a fix. But we still have no charge light on the dash. Still saying we've not got alternator, so what we want to do, don't know how well I'll be able to show you this and hold the camera. Well, let's see if we're actually getting charging. Not charging. We need to figure that out, because obviously that's not ideal. Bad news, the new alternator that I had refurbished a year or so ago doesn't seem to charge, which is not helpful because I spent a ton on it getting done. It was for another car actually. I didn't buy it for this car, but yeah, I didn't end up using it. Anyway, so potentially we have two bad alternators. I've checked the battery while it's running. It doesn't seem to drain very fast, so I don't know if it's charging but just putting a very low amount of charge out. So I'm gonna swap this good known alternator on and see if I get the same symptoms, and if I do, then potentially all three alternators are okay and there's a charging issue somewhere in the car. But I don't know the history of the alternator that was on here, and I'm not convinced about this one because I've had issues with it in the past, so I need to get that one on just to be sure. I'm not going to show you refitting that because you've just watched it once already. So let's smash that on and see where we end up. Right, we've got our third alternator on. Please God work. I've just hooked the battery up, so right, lights on the dash, start it. Oh no. Right, so we still have a light on the dash. Let's see what it's actually putting out. Yeah, that's not great. I think it's putting out a bit of charge, but not enough. So as the light comes on, that means the bulb's working, so I'm guessing it's a grounding issue. So one down there, check that, and there's that guy there as well, so I'll clean them up and hopefully we get some charging and we can call this part of it done. Nightmare. Right, I've just whipped off this chassis earth. Now, I know if this is corroded, the car won't crank. Or it won't crank or won't fire. One of the two, I can't remember. Anyway, it obviously cranks and it runs, so I don't think it's the issue, but I'll just clean that up. So I'm going to clean up where it lives as well. I've done this one over here, which I think this is just for fuse box power, so I don't think it's related. Well, I don't know. Electrics aren't my strong point. Anyway, We'll clean them up, see any difference. If not, the last resort is I wonder if there's some sort of voltage drop. Ignore the rust, I've still got to paint that down there. I wonder if there's some sort of voltage drop in this junction box. I've read or I've seen people have issues with like no start and stuff like that, and it's because there's some sort of drop in the voltage in that junction box. What I'm going to do to test that is I'm just going to pull the connections off and then literally just tape them together or clamp them together. I don't know if I've got a set of like mole grips, and then I can disregard this whole unit and test and see if it goes. If it does, that's nice and easy to replace. I'm hoping it's that. But yeah, let's try this earth first, because then I haven't got to find anything. I don't think I've got a spare one of these, but I can get one. So let's see how that goes. Right, back at it, gang. Another day, another alternator. So this I 100% know works. It came off my touring. I've just pulled it off this morning. It's got a different pulley on it, but it's fine. So this I know works. I tested it this morning. I'm going to put it on the car and hopefully it's fixed. I tried yesterday before I left. I just cleaned the earth strap. That didn't make a difference. I tried bolting the cables together rather than relying on the junction box. That made no difference. So I'm starting to run out of ideas, but I know that alternator works 100,000,000% because I saw it this morning. So I'm just going to try chucking that on and see if it makes any difference. Right, I've just tried running a nice fat earth cable. I ran it to the engine here, over to the strap tower. That's made no difference. My next plan of attack is to change the clocks. I have a few spare sets of 6-cylinder clocks, so I'm going to bang these in and see if that makes any difference. If that doesn't work, I am out of ideas. I can only think that there must be a break in the exciter wire between the dash and the alternator. When the clocks are out, I'm going to check continuity as well and see if that's see if the wire's okay. So hopefully it's the clocks or a broken wire. I don't really know what else it could be at this stage. So yeah, wish me luck. I'm not going to film this. Too awkward to film in the dark, hold a camera and change these. So I'll update you in a moment. Turns out Z3 clocks, the wiring is different. One of my friends messaged me the other day saying they think it's different. And it turns out, yeah, it's different. So you put the Z3 clocks in, the gauges all spaz out, you get no battery light, the coolant light's on, which I've never seen on an E36. Like, usually it has a warning light here, but there's an actual coolant light down here. So yeah, that's a no-go. So I either need to get another set of clocks or trace the wire. But on the plug for the clocks, you can't see where the wires go. So I need to get a wiring diagram, figure out which one is the trigger for the alternator to make it charge. So I'm gonna have to go and figure that out, and I'll try it again another day. So yeah, nightmare. All right, back at it. It's another day. So I posted up a question on our Facebook group E36 Kings about the issue I was having, and a few people said to me, check the wiring on the starter, because it sounds like the alternator isn't getting 12 volt, and it's probably because I've wired up the starter wrong. So I can see you've got the fat wire that goes to the alternator, and it looks like it runs to the starter, but maybe I've put it on an earth rather than on the live. I'm guessing it should be on this side, this terminal here. So I'm gonna pull it off from the earth, chuck it on there, and then hopefully she charges and we'll be laughing. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'll get back to you in a moment. So after doing a bit of digging, I was looking at this alternator wiring, thinking, well, there's only 2 wires to it, blah blah blah. And I'm looking over here, and I'm like, yeah, I can see one live that goes from the fuse junction box to the starter, and the other one that goes to the fuse box here. And I'm like, a few people said on the forum, make sure that the starter has 12 volt to it, and I'm looking at it thinking, well, it has, it's plugged in, and I can see the blue wire as well. And I was like, right. So I had a quick look at the starter, and I'm poking around, I'm like, yeah, I can see the blue wire live to the starter, obviously earth, blah blah blah, and I'm like, I can't actually see the live from the alternator to the starter. Anyway, after a bit of podding and proking, tucked up in the inlet manifold is this bad boy. So we're going to whip that on there, and then hopefully we'll have a charging alternator, which will be pretty cool. It was always going to be something simple. Anyway, this is the joys of building cars outside, months and months apart. I think when I put this, or when I ripped the old engine out, I must have ripped the old engine out, oh, well, I don't know, 3-6 months ago, something like that. So it's my own fault, as expected. I'm just glad it's something simple. So gonna wire that back up and then chuck the test. Well, I know this alternator works. Starter, just make sure that she charges, the light goes out. If that's sweet, then I'm going to use this opportunity to test these 3 alternators to see which of them are good and which are scrap. So I guess we'll turn this into something productive. But anyway, fingers crossed. Missing cable because of yours truly. So just to clarify, you've got your live that runs to the starter, live that runs to the fuse box, and then there should be a live that runs from the alternator to the starter, but it definitely helps when you connect it up. Nice. She's all wired up. I've also chucked the idle control valve hose on, started swapping out the accelerator cable, got the spare M50 one to replace this old broken one. I haven't pulled off the throttle cable, but the M50 and M52 throttle cables hopefully interchange and swap. Take the accelerator cable out. What you've got to do is get this little contraption here, which is your tensioner, to make sure that the valve isn't open at idle, etc. So you've got to free that off. There's a little pin inside there. You just push that through this little guy here. Push that through, and then you can free that off, and then that gets routed. It sits in this little recess on the wiring on the top of the engine, and then down here it goes into the bulkhead. So this is the old one I've still got to remove from the pedal. Basically goes in through here, and what you're left with on the other side is this contraption. So obviously that hooks into your pedal, and then this is the fitting that goes into the bulkhead. So to remove them, all you got to do is just pinch them together. Pretty easy. Just do that with a flathead, and then you swap the cable out. So we'll do that in a moment. Again, I'm not going to film that because it's not particularly interesting. It's tucked under the dash and awkward to film. Anyway, so fingers crossed. I'll put the clocks back in as well. Fingers crossed, we should be able to chuck the battery on. And there's enough juice in it, it should start. Hey, battery light's gone, which is sick. So shout out to all my guys on E36 Kings for pointing out the obvious, but obviously if it's that obvious you check it. I didn't think to check it. Anyway, alternator's sorted. Right, now the cooling system's sorted and the alternator is charging. That's 2 big things ticks off the list. Next up, we're going to put the rest of this engine bay back together. So we've got our viscous fan to install, which has got a recent coupling replaced. All the blades, fan blades, look in decent condition. These can fatigue, so if you've got anything with a bit of damage or that looks very old and brittle, replace it, because these love to explode. And when they explode, they usually take out your rad hoses. So replace this and this in a pair when you do it. Also, for you drifters that take these off and put electric fans on, don't bother. Unless you're going to put a massive electric fan on, you won't beat how efficient the viscous fan is. So good old mechanical fan, can't beat it. Just if you have any overheating issues, this is probably no good and needs replacing. So we're going to put that on. This guy we're going to have to wait because we haven't got our full front end yet, but we can also mount up our fan and our shroud. These are super important. if you're going to do drifting, track days, anything, or even just a daily driver, make sure you have a good fan shroud. If you don't, you lose efficiency from your fan, because it's obviously it's not going to be doing its job properly. So make sure it's there, install it. If you haven't got one, go and buy one. They are specific to 6 cylinders. There's 2 types. One is for AC and one is non-AC. So this car's got aircon. We haven't put the pump on yet, but the car's got AC. So this is a deeper fan, a deeper rad to suit a deeper rad shroud, and that's our fan there. So let's get that popped on. We've also got to reinstall the airbox and stuff, but I haven't got the slam panel with me, so we'll do that at a later stage. So yeah, we'll just button up a few bits and pieces in the engine bay. Right, to get these shrouds in and the fan, you've got to put them in together like this, and this is on a left-handed thread, so the opposite to usual. So lefty loosey, sorry, lefty tighty, righty loosey. So drop that all in one. And then the rad shroud has got like 4 little little ledges it sits on. Right, once this shroud's in, get the fan sat on the threads, and then just with a 32mm spanner, once it's sat on the threads, wind it a little bit, and it should bite on. And then you can just spin it, and that'll tighten itself. So obviously the idea is that when the engine's running, it can't back off because the engine's running in the opposite direction. Don't need to be tight. All I do, that's it, done. And then that's sorted. If you want to take it off, there is a proper tool you can use where you lock the water pump pulley and then pull against, but if they've not been off in ages, they can be an absolute nightmare. So what I usually do is just get a 32mm socket, put it on there, and just smash it with a hammer to the right, and usually shocking it will break it free and it comes off. You should have 2 clips here to hold this rad shroud in. I've lost them, so what we'll do is we'll just chuck a cable tie either side for now. I will order the clips next time I need bits from B&W, but these will do for now, just to keep the shroud from moving around. Otherwise you end up with that, and that's not good. Right, that's the cooling system fully buttoned up, so we don't need to touch that anymore. Next job, if you remember me saying I needed to buy some decent exhaust manifold studs, bolts, because the bolts we've got on are terrible. So I bought these, decent. I can't remember if they were genuine or not, but they're decent quality copper nuts, so we'll get those popped on. Manifold nuts are all replaced. They've got lovely fresh copper ones. I bought a big box off eBay. They weren't the OEM ones, but they look pretty decent quality. They've got a big box. I think they're only like 15 quid or something, so they're all replaced. So that's the engine bay pretty much done. The airbox has got to go on, and the screen wash bottle, but we're going to wait until the headlights are in. But to attack the welding, if you remember, this seal's pretty rotten. I'm going to take this wing off. So I'm not going to rush to put this front end back on yet, because it's easier to take the wing off if all of this is out. So next video, we're going to smash up that brake line, get the brakes done, put some braided flexes on the front, and then we're going to start chopping into this seal. So exciting, we're getting close to the end. So cheers for watching, we'll see you in the next one.